All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is Hoya Locker Room, episode 95. We have an esteemed panel today. We want to welcome my guest host, my co-host, Markham Stansbury back in the building. We have Ed Hopkins and Felix Yeoman from the class of 1978. They got on the Hilltop in 1974. Very formidable and interesting time for the Georgetown Hoyas. These two gentlemen were there together as freshmen, and they matriculated all the way through as seniors, and that's quite an accomplishment under a Big John team. So I just want to welcome you guys and thank you for taking time out on your Sunday. Two of my favorites. I was fortunate to get on the Hilltop in '80. And both your names and your legacies and your body of work spoke volumes, and it was an honor to follow in your footsteps. With that, I'll bring in my host, Markham Stansbury, to welcome you as well.
Well, I just want to say, I'm going to change this. I just wanted to give my shout out to my actors. Now I can see
there you go.
Pretty face. I just want to say it's great that Gene said what he said about your names, because I just finished, believe it or not, I just finished this past week streaming The Wire. I never watched it. And I just want to say that it's a pleasure to be with two guys whose name rang out on the streets.
I was wondering where he's going with that.
I told you, you gotta give a little elbow.
Yeah. Well, let me say, man, I appreciate you guys having us on. And I appreciate everything that you guys are doing with this Hoya Locker Room for the program. And I appreciate the opportunity to tell our story, because for some strange reason, everyone thinks Georgetown basketball started in 1981 when Pat walked on campus. And I can see why. Pat is certainly a once-in-a-lifetime player. Pat is with Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem, that one player that can come in and walk in and turn your whole program around. So he deserves every accolade that he gets. But, I'm here to remind you, and Hop was certainly remind you that there was a reason why Pat came to Georgetown.
Yeah, he didn't walk in that empty room.
We had already established a winning tradition to make it attractive for someone like Pat to come. Would you agree with that, Ed?
Oh, totally. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Of course, this game had immediately is a big impact. But yeah, we laid the foundation for players like that to want to come to Georgetown. Big John was always looking for somebody like Patrick. He said he wanted to have someone to take him to that steak table, find all of that gold that was there.
Well, before we go any further,
let
me just ask Gene a question. Do we have a Instagram page?
Yes, we do. Our Instagram page is hoya.locker.room.
Are we on Facebook at all?
Yes, sir. Hoya Locker Room on Facebook.
And Elon Musk hasn't returned my phone call, so I don't know what the hell to call this. Are we on X? Are we on Twitter?
Yes, sir. We are on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @RoomHoya.
Well, Elon probably hasn't returned your call because he's getting ready to take a hit. And everybody's signing on the thread now. They're getting tired. They're getting tired of Elon's foolishness.
And to Felix's point, we are also on Threads. Hoya Locker Room.
ahead of the game. Ahead of the game, just like I expected.
Hey, Felix, that was a nice setup, Felix. Thank you.
Ahead of the game, just like I expected you to be.
So let's jump right into it, gentlemen. What was your journey to the Hilltop? How did you end up at Georgetown?
Ed, you want to jump in?
Sure. All right. Well, I tell you, what happened with my story, I'd attended Edmondson High School in Baltimore, and the school's located on the west side of the city. And we were pretty ranked high, wound up being number 2 in the city behind Dunbar. And, you know, I'd established myself as an all-star in Baltimore, and Big John, you noticed a few coaches. However, our season got cut short. The teachers went on strike because at that time, the Baltimore city teacher was making just over $16,000. So they decided that wasn't enough. We went home for Christmas, never came back until March.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate that someone had noticed my skills. We had like an all-star game put on because we never finished our season. So they invited schools from New York, DC, Philadelphia, and just drew coaches in to see us perform. So Big John, he recruited me. He sent Bill Stein to see me weekly. And no other coach was doing that. So eventually I made a decision to come to Georgetown. And that's how the ball got started for me. Beautiful campus. Coach was inviting. So we had that first practice. Boy.
Did you say coach was inviting? I've never
Very inviting.
I've never heard that word be used to describe him.
It was like, I thought it was a different person, man, once that practice started. I did not know that person. I'm serious. I said, this is the same person who sat in my living room?
Yeah, that second part you've heard
Such a
before,
nice
until
way.
that first practice.
Until that first practice. Until that first practice, man. He was not to be played with.
Well, I'm going to date myself with my journey. Coach actually coached me as a freshman at St. Anthony's High School. And back then, St. Anthony's was competing with the DeMatha for #1 in the city. And he actually, while it's not, it was unusual back then for a freshman to suit up with the varsity. You know, right now, these days, it's commonplace, just like it's commonplace for someone to leave high school and go directly into pros. And they had to put that 1-year rule in. But he let me run with the varsity. Also, me and Skates let us practice with the varsity. And then after my freshman year, now, of course, I didn't play at all. I just practiced and rode the pine. But they were St. Anthony's was 25-1 that year. Won the Knights of Columbus tournament. They beat Mount Vernon in that tournament, who was always stacked. They had Ray Williams, Sam Williams' brother. The year before, they had Gus Williams. And that year that they had Gus Williams, they had 5 D1 players starting, you know, Mount Vernon out of New York. So
Gus,
then
talking about Gus Williams, Seattle Supersonics?
Seattle Supersonics and his brothers out of Mount Vernon, New York. So after my freshman
history
year,
of the game knowledge out there, everyone.
I had some beautiful experiences with this game. You know, I don't want to divert, but my freshman, when I was suiting up with them my freshman year, we played a tournament at Providence, Rhode Island, at Providence College. And before our game, or the day before our game, the night before our game, Providence College played University of Massachusetts. So I got to see Dr. J play as a college, I believe it was a junior. He played, Marvin Barnes was on the Providence team, Ernie DiGregorio. So I've got to see some high level basketball, even as like a 14-year-old. But to cut to the chase, after my freshman year, John took the job at Georgetown. And, you know, as you know, all the guys that I played with the guys I looked up to, Merlin Wilson, Jonathan Smith, Greg Brooks, Aaron Long, they all went to Georgetown. And then subsequent to that, Alonzo Holloway went to Georgetown. And at the end of my junior year, I was pretty academically advanced and I only had one class to finish to graduate. Big John got wind of that and offered me a scholarship. So I left high school after my junior year.
Wow.
And
I did not know that.
yeah, that's how my journey began.
So
you were literally on campus on the team doing what should have been your high school senior year.
That's right. Yeah. All my buddies tell me I went hardship.
you're the first hardship candidate.
Yeah.
So you played for Big John in high school, and
As a freshman.
Ed, as a freshman, and Ed, he obviously recruited you.
Mhm.
So after that first practice, what was the feeling? And obviously you're a freshman, and just I want to digress for a second. That freshman class that you guys came in with was a hell of a freshman class.
It was at Georgetown.
You had Mike Riley, Coach Estrick, both you two gentlemen, Derek Jackson. I think.
And Bill
brought in a shooter from junior college named Billy Thomas.
So that's a pretty legendary freshman class.
Yeah,
So
it was pretty impactful.
Pretty impactful to say the least, right?
Right.
So what was that transition like after knowing Big John as a high school coach? And if you can touch on him as a high school coach versus him as your college coach, what was the transition like?
Well, it wasn't much of a transition for me because.
So you were never the dumb MF. I take it, Felix.
Never the what?
You were never the dumb MF.
Well, no. Well, everything that was a surprise to everyone when we hit campus, like Ed said,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was.
and like Markham said, inviting. Who are you talking about? So everything that surprised everyone else, I had already experienced with him in high school. He'll tell you, profanity was his second language. He was very intense as a coach. He ran you to impose discipline. I remember one time we ran so hard in one practice that one of the players went over to him and said, "Mr. Thompson, please, I can't run anymore. I'm sorry. I just can't run." And then he finally let us go. So he was that intense.
You just said something interesting to me, and I don't know if Gene touched up on it. You were in high school, and you said the guy went over and said, "Mr. Thompson, I just can't run anymore."
I can't run anymore.
Where did the Mr. come from as opposed to coach?
He was tired. He was tired.
No. What I'm talking about is a lot. I remember when I got fired. I got fired as manager, and
please tell the whole story though.
Right. We got to hear this one.
You can't just say I got fired.
Well, let me give you a quick answer. It was just a show of respect. We're all kids, high school kids, and that's how we, address it.
I was just wondering if there was an insist, because like all my coaches always called him Coach Jones, Coach Wesley, like it was never missed, even though in the South, like adults always missed it. The coach was like that was like a level above almost,
Right.
And
well, I remember using all those prefixes. Coach Thompson, Mr. Thompson, but amongst ourselves, Big John.
Yeah.
And we had a couple other nicknames for him.
Yeah, we won't go into. Because those nicknames paid forward, just so people know.
Yeah.
They rolled forward.
Yeah.
The really good ones too. The really good ones.
Yeah.
When I got fired and I was trying to go up there and talk to him, at first it was like, ain't nobody talking to you, forget about it. And then I don't know what happened. Actually, I do know what happened. My man Charles Smith spoke up for me. But when I went down there to talk to him, Kenny's told me to tell, I'll never forget, Kenny told me to call him Mr. Thompson. And I was like, I don't know what that's about, but I'm gonna do it. Because I ain't
Did it work?
get rehired.
Okay.
Did it work?
It worked.
Right.
I ended up
It's
being
just,
manager for a minute.
Yeah, just a show of respect.
But Ed, for you coming in as a freshman, you played right away. And you were playing alongside someone that Felix mentioned that was just an incredible player, Merlin Wilson. What was that like for you coming from high school and then making that transition? And you saw your minutes were impactful and meaningful right out the box.
Well, first of all, my background playing, I was lucky to have a good recreation coach. So the recreation coach, his name was Mike Carter. And Mike Carter, when you played for him, he was kind of he was a throwback like Big John. One of these coaches would take the blunt of everything the game had to offer and protect his players. So when we were playing, he said, the officials, don't talk to them. Leave them alone. I will fight for you for the officials. So therefore, I just concentrate on my game, and I never even thought that they existed when I played. So when I got to Georgetown, also my high school coach was Bob Wade. So he was also
I was going to mention that.
Presence.
Right. He had mentioned that.
Yeah.
Hop played for Bob Wade at Edmiston before he moved over to Dunbar. Yep.
When you said you played Dunbar in high school, I was gonna say the Dunbar Reggie Williams, because I don't like to miss a chance to mention Reggie's name. But you played for Bob Wade.
That's right.
Yeah, I played for Bob Wade, and it was his first coaching job, actually. So the coach who was at our high school left to go to Ohio. Bob Wade, which was my JV coach, he got the varsity job. So I had him for 3 seasons.
What was it playing for him?
Yeah, that was just playing for him. So once
I said, what was it like playing for him?
Oh, what was it like playing for him? It's pretty much like, again, being coached by Big John. These guys also, they knew the game, and they just wanted to motivate their players. And sometimes in motivating their players, they have to get really next to you to find out, what you're made of, because you're going to combat when you're out there on that floor. The players that are around you, are they assisting you? So he kind of taught that, and we were a winning team. So once I got to Georgetown, the practice, the running, I was used to all of that. The playing, I had the knowledge as far as the gameplay, just to play. And when you have someone like Merlin and Johnny on the floor, they were just full of confidence. Man, Merlin rebounded that ball so hard, I could never catch up with him. I mean, this guy was just a phenomenal player, and he wasn't that huge. Well, it's his plays, the mental aspect of playing underneath the basket. He was just 100% great at that, and that's what rubbed off to me. Yeah.
Both of you guys had injuries while you were on the Hilltop. If you could talk about that, because one thing that's a common thread between all of us is that having played for Big John and being coached by Big John, an injury did not mean that you weren't going to feel the wrath of everyone else that was practicing. Meaning it was abuse by team. How did you both handle being injured and still feeling a part of the team and making the contribution? Because again, you built the foundation. You were the foundation in terms of establishing the program. So what was it like for you staying connected when you were injured? So Felix, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, my freshman year, I had a stress fracture in my leg. And I would come to practice, and there were a lot of changes that went on in the early 70s with college ball. One, they started letting freshmen play. And I believe that happened in 1972. So the year that Johnny, Merlin, Brooks, and Long came in, that was the first year they started letting freshmen play. Because prior to that, for example, Abdul-Jabbar, when he played at UCLA, he played 3 years because every college had a freshman team and then the varsity. And back then they said UCLA's freshman team could beat the varsity. So they finally changed that rule. There used to be 18 scholarships and they cut them back to 15. And I believe they also established a traveling squad. I guess they call themselves trying to save money. And so your entire team couldn't travel. So while I was hurt, I wasn't on traveling squad anyway. What I would do while they were out of town, I would go down to the locker room and leave notes on the chalkboard for them when they got back. And just make sure I kind of participated at every level I could. I think my sophomore year when I broke my foot, that was a pretty devastating injury to me because I was playing extremely well out of the preseason going in to the season. And Big John kind of told, talking to him, he told me about his plans for me relative to, how I was going to play, how much I was going to play, what he wanted me to accomplish and all of that. And then that happened. So I continued to participate, but it was, that I think more than anything, that was more difficult injury, because I would still come down and shoot. I would still participate. But when I came back, it took me time to get up to speed. I wasn't a James Worthy. I don't know if you remember when James Worthy came off of injury. He was limping around on court because he hadn't rehabbed his leg yet, still scoring 25 and getting 18 rebounds. I wasn't that guy.
I'm glad you mentioned James Worthy. We're trying to get him to come on here.
Yeah. He would.
Yes.
I would imagine he would be good to talk to because of Big John's affiliation with Dean Smith. So you just made sure you participated because also you felt not only a dedication to the program, a dedication to your teammates, because we were pretty much a pretty tight-knit group. I can say that for my 4 years there, that I made friends for life there. Occasionally the four of us, myself, Hop, Estrick, and Riley, try to get together for dinner just to catch up, at various times. So I wanted to stay committed to the team, and I wanted to stay committed to my teammates.
Well, it's interesting, Felix, that you mentioned, the commitment to your teammates. On Hoya locker room, Gene is my teammate. And sometimes, I'm sure even though y'all get to dinner, your teammates disappoint you, right? And he did the show.
I got him, Hop. I got him. I got him.
He did the show last week without me, and it's. I just got to say I'm disappointed because usually by this time in the show, he's given a rundown of our guest stats and what they did while they were at Georgetown. I've heard none of that, so I'm a little disappointed. So I'm gonna just take the lead with this myself. I'm almost certain that you guys, and I think it was 74, 75, got an NCAA tournament bid. First back to back. Give us a little bit of what happened during that season.
Well, let me mention this, and I'll let Hop give you a rundown on the seasons. But you brought up that 74, 75, our freshman year. It reminds me of a story, and Frank Rienzo, God rest his soul, used to tell this story. It was preseason. We had our preseason runs, I was on the way to the gym and I bumped into Frank Rienzo. And Rienzo said, hey, you're one of the new freshmen. How you doing? I said, I'm doing great. I said, we're going to the NCAA tournament this year. And he looked at me kind of side-eyed, yeah, okay, and walked off, right?
Was that
And
the days of 32 teams in the tournament?
They had upped it.
yeah,
Yeah, 32, yeah.
yeah. But at that point, Georgetown hadn't been to an NCAA tournament, I want to say since 43. And he told me later on, he looked at me like that because he thought I was crazy. But at the end of the year, we won the ECAC and we went to the NCAA tournament.
Hop, before you jump in, Felix, what made you say that?
I felt confident. I knew the recruiting class we came in with. I knew what skills Jonathan Smith and Merlin Wilson had, Greg Brooks. Remember, these guys were all nationally recruited. They could have gone to any school they wanted to in the country, but they followed John to Georgetown. Jonathan and Merlin were first team all met. And for your national viewers, that's the same as all city for other cities. They were first and second team. Brooks was third team all met. Merlin was a high school All-American. So in terms of where they could have gone, it could have been anywhere, because I knew NC State was hot and heavy after Merlin. And if you recall, in '74, NC State won the national championship.
David Thompson.
Right. Had he gone on to that team, he would have played with David Thompson. But his commitment was here. And like I said, Brooks and Johnny were nationally recruited. So I knew what kind of talent we had on the team. I had played that summer with Hop, and I knew what he was bringing to the table. I did not know about Derek because he was coming from Illinois. So I wasn't familiar with him. I was familiar with Risey, Mike Riley, and those infamous Cardoza teams. And I knew Craig Eschrick was a third team All-Met. And the school that came from Springbrook had a reputation for shooters. Buzzy Brayman, who was a professional shooting coach for the pros, came from Springbrook. His successor was Craig Eschrick. And Craig had a successor out there that went to Maryland, who was also a shooter, Brian Mack. So they produced shooters there. So I just felt that confident, particularly playing with Ed over the summer.
Back him up, Ed.
Wow.
He didn't leave you much, but whatever you got, Ed, we take it.
All right. Well, pretty much the players we had, I would say Johnny, he would definitely would go to war for you. So he really was the heart of our team. And, Merlin, he was more like the protector of the team. And that allowed us to fill in and play our parts. I remember when Coach used to have a saying, he said, man, I'm gonna let my animal out the cage. I said, what is he talking about now? And I had never seen him play before. And he was talking about Mike Riley. Man, to see Mike Riley perform, I'm serious, he had to be the best defensive player in the country. I mean, any major school we played, he was on them. They couldn't do nothing with him. He did it to them. Got us the ball. Just to mention his name, our senior year, I'm gonna get back to the freshman year, but just to wrap into how great his mind was in helping the team. We're playing Virginia in Charlottesville. Had almost no way to win the game with Virginia having the ball with very little time on the clock. At that time, they had their big forward, Alvaroni. They had Jeff Lamp.
Steve Castellano.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they tried to inbound the ball, man. Mike set the guy up so beautiful and took offensive foul on it. We got the ball back and was able to win the game, going to the next round of the NIT. But getting back to my freshman year.
Hold on, yeah. Let me since you went into a little detail about Mike Riley. Let me just ask you a question because
Yes.
when I was there, I used to always hear Big John say, and talking about in terms of defensive players at Georgetown, Mike Riley's #1, skip 3 spaces, and man, put up you want at #2. And I always thought Gene, if you ask me, that would have been my guy. It's in terms of especially perimeter defense. But in the very beginning, you're talking about Mike Riley. You said he was able to get us the ball, where we needed it. And I've never heard anyone say anything good about Gene as far as offense goes. So I'm thinking that probably we could go with Mike Riley over Gene Smith.
Hey, what I tell you, every day, every show, I got something for him. Every show. Well,
But I'm gonna tell you,
go ahead.
Gene, you always been my guy too. Now I got to speak up for you, man, because
Don't worry about it, Ed. I got him later. Don't even worry about it.
all right. So yeah, man. So we started the season with our group. We got familiar with each other, and one of our first tournaments I remember is the Kodak Classic. And the Kodak Classic, they had invited Syracuse. They invited, Dartmouth. They invited Georgetown, and Rochester was the host. So sometimes it's really terrible to see the teams you're going to be playing against. In this case, I felt like so confident, like we walked into the arena, looked like old as the Boston Garden, and the two teams were playing, Dartmouth and Rochester. So Rochester came out and won Dartmouth came and won the game. And I'm looking at both of these teams and thinking, wow, we had to face one of them. I think we could kill. Well, we played our game against Syracuse, and it was a tough-fought game. We wound up winning by 1 point. Then the championship game came. So it was Dartmouth. And that time, there was no time clock. So you could control the ball as long as you can protect it. And they protected the ball well. We were like running behind them all game long. Finally, the time ran out. And we were like, wow, we lost this game. So coach was all, like, okay, it's Christmas time. You guys go home, meet us back at the gym December 31st, and we're going to have practice at 6 p.m. Derek went home, everybody went their way, and everybody else went down to DC. Time for practice to start. We shoot around. He gave us his Big John theory, and, wanted to see where our minds were, so we played his little trick. So he said, all right, I just want to see y'all get along and shoot, okay? That's it. All of a sudden, somebody said, shh, running to take a shower. So he had to call Mike Jennifer to go tell the guys, come on, get back on the court. He comes down and he talks to us and says, gentlemen, I just want you all to know one thing. They did not have a scholarship athlete on that team. You're talking about a kick in the face. Really. Did not have a scholarship athlete. So since y'all were so tired, we're going to start off practice by running. And not with your arms down, with them out. So we did that for 45 minutes. So long story short, we saw New Year's Day come into that gym.
I knew that was
and if I could picture it, there was a couple of more elements to that story that Ed was telling, that when he was telling us, when he was talking about Big John's speech, it was a motivational speech of what we have to do to win, how we have to put in extra time and be committed to the game and all of that. And that's why Ed said, when he ended practice, you know, some guys stayed out there, worked out, but some guys bolted to the locker room. After that long motivational speech, they bolted to the locker room, and he sent somebody out back to the locker room to get them, you know, bring them back out. And he was angry because he just gave us a speech about what we had to do to win. Do you know, when we started, as Ed said, we started running first, and we practiced, that was December 31st. He let us go at 12:15 after midnight and said, "Happy New Year, you." Right.
Papa John. So
I got to do this real quick.
Hurry up and do real quick before I forget.
While Ed was talking about Dartmouth, I get a text from my boy Greg Lemkow saying, make sure you tell that guy that we beat y'all 2 years ago. So I just want to say this. I did not know that there was precedent Dartmouth beating Georgetown, number one. But also, I want the people out there in Hoya locker room land to realize that the last time, if that was the first time we lost to Dartmouth, 9 years later, we were NCAA champs. So by my math, we got 7 more years. 1984.
Both you gentlemen, that incident obviously made me reflect on some similar incidents we had where it went beyond a hard practice where you're going into the next day or you're getting an hour and you're coming right back in. During that season in particular, first thing, did you feel that those moments you got closer, or did you feel in those moments there was also an opportunity for the team for that to go sideways? That's first. And then second, if you guys can remember, did you have any idea of the foundation that you were building? That obviously in 1980, going to the Elite Eight, you guys are directly responsible for that. And then 82 and 84, did you have an idea that you were the foundation, that you would one day be the foundation for that? So I know that's a lot, but you get to handle those two.
Well, let me just make a comment on that Dartmouth game.
We can't get off the Dartmouth game.
This is related to what you're asking, and then I'll turn it over to Ed to answer those two questions. That particular game, because you asked, did it make us closer, or could it? That game was impactful because that Syracuse team that we beat, their All-American was a guy by the name of Rudy Hackett. Mm-hmm. Now, the year before, because Syracuse has some good teams, the year before, Dennis Duval, who played for the Bullets, was their senior and their leader. Mm-hmm. Had we won that tournament, I'm sure we would have cracked the top 20 for the first time. But because we lost that game, we missed that opportunity. And then I'll let Ed address your question from there, whether it brought us closer and did we see where the program was going.
Well, I believe it brought us closer when I think about the end of the season. There was really, Dartmouth did us a favor because, you know, we were full of ourselves. I mean, we had a tall team and we just felt that we could beat anybody. But Dartmouth taught us a lesson. There's two schools that taught us a lesson. Dartmouth was the first, and the second one was Holy Cross. similar styles. I think Holy Cross ran like a wheel, running and weaving. So anyway, we went on a 6-game losing streak from that Dartmouth game, and we could not find a way to win. So I sympathize with the teams who had a difficult time winning in Hoya, with the Hoyas. We went on to finally win. And I don't want to get into the flag situation at this time. I'm going to go over that. That helped propel us even more. So we're all of January and pretty much all of February, we won our games. But when we met Holy Cross, they taught us a lesson because we went to Worcester and I'd never seen nothing like that place. I mean, it was like a theater or something we were playing, and with curtains, and it was a mob. I mean, they just had a, what you call, sellout crowd. So they had their fans behind them, and they beat us laughing at us, man. I mean, they laughed at us. I mean, they just toyed with us. They were having fun. They were just in their zone playing. Everything they did was right. However, never beat us again. Never beat us again. So then we went on the rest of the season, and finally we got to the ECAC tournament. So we go down to Morgantown to play, and Pittsburgh was there. Let's see, who was the other team, Felix? Was,
GW.
GW.
And West Virginia.
And West Virginia, okay.
That's right.
West Virginia, they had a good team, but Pittsburgh looked like they were the class of the field. However, there's certain things you can't do, and officials can take control of the game. So at that time, we used to tap each other on the butt to give them 5. Pittsburgh got into the game, the guy tapped West Virginia player on the butt, that was a foul. So they got the home job and lost. We got West Virginia the next night. Tough game, tough game. Make a long story short, it was give and go on both sides. Came down to the last 6 seconds. We scored. We were down 3. We scored, cut it to 1. So it was like 6 seconds or so left in the game. So we had to foul, and we fouled them. So now we're trying to get to the line up the court because the foul happened in the backcourt. So, front court. So then we go up to the line, and just before we get to the line, you know, the shooter, his name was, I think his last name was Banks. He's standing at the top of the key. So Johnny is standing almost near half court. So he walks a little closer. Now I'm walking around them. So Johnny shouts to the guy, "Can't make that. Too much pressure." Then he goes up and he taps the guy on the ass because he's outside of the free throw line. So then I walk and take my space because Maryland's already on the right side. I go to the left side. Guy walk up to the line and he blows a 1-and-1. Ball comes off on my side. I do a blowout, a 1-dribble blowout to Billy Thomas. He's waiting there like a wide receiver, waiting for the pass. He can't wait to throw the ball across court in the opposite direction to Derek Jackson. Derek, in 1 dribble stroke, nails a jumper 22 feet out, 23 feet out. He go through there so hard, I'm like, dang, I'm there to receive the ball. They wonder, how did I get there on court so fast? We go up 1. Now, we have the defense because we scored the perfect fast break in like 2.3 seconds. So now we have to get our defense together. I'm going back on defense in center field. West Virginia send their player there, and we scatter side to side at half court, right to left. They do a baseball pass, and it's coming right toward me. I'm like, oh, no, oh. I can't touch this guy. I'm behind him. So right at the split second, Mike McDermott with his long arms, 6'4" frame, he's got at least 6'8" arm span. I mean, he tips the ball with one finger. It just goes out of bounds and we win the game.
And that gentleman was Big
And
John's
that gentleman-
first NCAA tournament berth.
Gene, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm off mute now. Wait a second. Just be patient. I'm off mute now. Felix, you took the words right out of my mouth. I couldn't interrupt. I just had to let him describe the immaculate jumper that Dirk Jackson took that propelled us into the Big John's first NCAA tournament. Ed, if Rich ever gives up his job, I think you got a job in play-by-play, fam.
Oh,
I could not. I was hanging on every word. Markham is texting me. Are you going to interrupt? No. No. I wanted to hear the whole story. Well done. Well done.
That's how
Well
it went
done.
down.
so that was a total team effort from Johnny giving the command. Myself doing the perfect thing with the rebound. Billy Thomas catching the pass and blowing it across court, and Dirk receiving it. That ball ripped through the nets. And then Mike McDermott, the savior of the day.
Love it.
Sure, there was no more time on the clock for West Virginia.
Love it. Love it. Did you guys have any idea what you were establishing at that point in time? Looking back on it now, and then if you could fast forward and give us your feelings about the Hilltop and Georgetown basketball. I'd love to hear that from you two, architects of the program.
Well, I'd say we did, because that was part of Coach's recruiting pitch, that we had an opportunity to establish something. And we had an opportunity to basically start a winning program. And the thing that comes to mind when you asked me that question was, because of Coach's intensity and because of his commitment and the things that he was doing, we could feel it. We could see it coming. Just like I told Rienzo, we're going to the NCAA tournament this year. We saw the upward trend of the program. And, I distinctly remember being in practice several times where someone would do something crazy, throw the ball out of bounds, run the wrong way when they call a play, and Coach would blow the whistle. And he said, look, I am going to win an NCAA championship. He said, you can either be here or not, but I am going to win an NCAA championship. And you could see, if you think about the progression, 75, 76, our first two NCAA tournaments. 4 years later, 1980, they're in the Elite Eight. 4 years later, they win it all. Not to mention the previous years where they actually went to, the championship game. So it was our anticipation that the program would build. But just because we anticipated it didn't mean it necessarily needed to happen. There was nothing for me, 17, 18-year-old kid in love with basketball, and the gym staying open until 3 in the morning. I don't know if you remember that. Guy down there in the cage till 3 in the morning. Was nothing for me to be in my dorm room around midnight and say, I'll go down and get some shots up, because the gym would be empty. And it was nothing for me to be down there shooting around, working on skills and all of that. And 12:30, 1 in the morning, Big John come out of his office from watching film, would wave to me and head out. And that was pretty consistent in terms of the work that he was putting in. So I'd say we did see the program going in this direction and knew it was just a matter of time. That's my opinion.
Pop, anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, he always said that, and he let us know, put in our mind where he wanted to go. And he said he wanted to win a championship. It was difficult for us because he already knew where he wanted to go, but in guiding us to help him get there, well, he had such a defense mechanism that he would never let anyone into his mind. He wanted you to stay out of his mind. So therefore, there was kind of, you do what I say, or you can get out. Not so harsh, I mean, in that form, but that's what it meant. You know, I'm here to win a championship. And if you guys listen, work hard, we can get there together. Just simple. It's just, sometimes when you say it that simple, it's not as easy because we are human and things don't resonate in our minds to do the right thing or do the correct way where the coach might want it to be, you know. So, but yeah, he wanted to go there. He wanted to get a championship, and I applaud him for getting it. I applaud the Hoyas who helped him get there, and for us laying the foundation. There's some great people who helped do that.
Well, I applaud you both for helping lay the foundation. I applaud you both for when I first met you both, however incidental or however accidental, you always projected or portrayed yourself in a way that, you know, we always hear about like what a Harvard man was. Well, I know what it's like to be a Georgetown man, a Georgetown Hoya. And I feel like we have such a unique program that was established with you gentlemen, which I think is just so important to talk about because I love hearing it from the mouth of those that actually accomplished.
Get it.
Like hearing Ed tell the story of the West Virginia game, the play-by-play to me is, I'm going to edit that and cut out the rest of this program. That's all I'm going to show. Because again, I mean, I'm over here getting, you know, chills like I'm there because it's so personal. But you know, we're well over an hour, gentlemen. I can't thank you enough for.
Can I say one last thing, James?
Of course you can. Cut me off anytime. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. But
No, please.
It had to be done because
Better you than Markham. Better you than Markham.
yeah. So you ask yourself, well, what happens after the West Virginia game and we get our first tournament bid? Well, it's like this. It's like the have and the have-nots. You're invited to the table, but we really don't want you there. You know, that's the way we felt because the way we exited that tournament, that game was supposed to be us going forward. Instead, another university went forward, and as a result, they inducted their entire team into their 2015 Hall of Fame, moving forward past us. Now, they won that game as it reads. Leonard Drake scores 2 free throws on expired time. How you win a game on expired time? The game is over. But they were allowed to go and shoot 2 free throws rather than an overtime of the game.
That was Central Michigan.
Central Michigan. I'm sorry I didn't mention the name.
Yeah, we lost first round, Central Michigan. Their pros were Dan Roundfield and James McElroy.
You only had to mention the name for Markham. I knew what you were talking about, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
You pierced me.
I confess I did not know, but I do know that Dan Marley went to Central Michigan. How about that?
Antonio Brown?
That's good.
That's good.
That game you're talking about, was that the infamous foul at the end of the game, offensive foul, or
That's the infamous offensive
Offensive
foul
foul.
that Leonard Drake did a playground move on Jonathan Smith, one of the most premier athletes you ever want to meet. Goes, I guess he must have been 4 feet off of the floor. Released that, at least 36 inches off the floor, released that jump shot. And this Leonard Drake, he just went straight under him, knocked his legs and everything, his body, everything. There's a collision. And the official, and simultaneously, the ball hits the rim and the official calls a foul. And I just knew it was for us. And it goes the other way. And it's just, you know, you do all that hard work and you wonder where is the true measure. And it's NCAA, I have to call them out, man. They're not all they're supposed to be.
They missed it. Well, yes, they definitely missed it. Well, Markham.
Let me ask you a question. I'm just curious. On that West Virginia team you played,
Yes.
by any chance was Bobby Huggins on that team?
Sure enough was. Yes, he was. Bob Huggins. Yeah. I don't
That's for you, Gene Smith. Don't ever underestimate my knowledge and history of the game. Don't do it.
Touche.
Absolutely correct.
Well, thank you again, gentlemen. Markham's going to take us home with his usual quotes at the end. We hope to see you gentlemen in the Hoya future sooner than later. And again, thank you very much for all you've done for the program.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Gene. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Gene. And a special shout out to Bill Stein. He
Yes.
deserves this day. The Hoyas need to salute him.
Yes.
Mhm.
And now he's the only one left out of the
From our era,
how do you call
coaching
it?
era.
Yeah. We've had him on the show, and
You have? Okay.
he always reminds me he recruited me and nobody else to Georgetown. So
Oh, my
you
God.
gotta go with Coach Stein. You know,
Yeah.
always talking out the side of his mouth. You know how that is.
Yeah.
Well, absolute thanks to you gentlemen for coming
Thank
on.
you, Gene.
Really appreciate it. Want to give a shout out to my man Joey Brown, who had a birthday last week. That's Joey Brown, who not played with Alonzo Mourning, the Dikembe Mutombo, not who wore number 10. That is Joey Brown, father of future Hoya, Christian Brown.
We're recruiting.
Happy birthday to Joy.
Happy birthday.
This is a quote from Gordon Parks, Sr. The guy who takes a chance, who walks the line between the known and the unknown, who is unafraid of failure, will succeed. I think that speaks well to the teams you guys played on, who were establishing Georgetown basketball. And for the Gene Smiths of the world who don't know, Gordon Parks is one of the most preeminent American photographers out there.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Very well stated, Mark.
Very well.
Thank you, brother.
Perfect.
Until next time. I can't wait to see you guys in person.
All right. Thank you, Gene.
All right. Thank you.
Enjoy your rest of your
Yes.
Sunday.
All right.
too.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Gene.